criticism, framing terrorism.
Dancing unity cards.
No.
Surprise. Good card.
Everybody good? Wait. Everybody good?
Hmm?
Okay. You will know because I consider the heteronormativity of process of polarization of natural bodies fungible but perpetuates systemic hierarchies that determine normalcy and attempts to post notions of normalcy on individuals which cause psychological violence, and it is the root cause of material violence because they didn't. Bodies are unfit and targeted and exterminated because they don't fit notions of normalcy, and Burke also says it manifests itself into targeting of bodies and violence and conflicts and wars are inevitable in this war because society is predisposed to believe that those differences from the norm are something to be filled. The alternatives to vote negative or war with the system that the advocates just use the balance to identify with the other in the face of politics that are exclusionary from civilization and striving for a better type of future is exclusionary to the queer body because they are never accessible to this type of politics. Aligning with negativity presents a revolution that's dominant logic of your truth, providing a method to subverting violence that shot into the role of the last role for Tim invested towards heteronormativity, which will just prove that with the linked up way that they don't have access to permutation. There's no question of alternative sovereignty, which means that you go to the criticism, which will go to the link up debate here one. You continue to camp up, which means that there's a methodology debate here. The foreign policy comes to the self-other dichotomy that operates from a standpoint of identity, where hierarchies are created and categories are points that actions can be taken. This perpetuates the difference between self and other. That's Campbell. There's also the Scott evidence which says that the categories that the state categorizes beings, the state must form them into one line. The law demands specific recorded facts which place bodies that blur lines under a cookie cutter to be disciplined or destroyed, which means that their methodology using the United States to take an action links back to this and prayer for closed and queer types of actions, which means they don't get the permutation, they can't overcome these types of links, and the evidence of securitization and trying to isolate the instance of terrorism, which the case it's also going to prove is a securitization and fear type of rhetoric means that they're not going to access type of permutation because they're isolating and trying to control an instance of another means that they're not going to have access to this. There's no answers to these three links coming out of the one arrow which they're going to give access to these, and they say that the mission link is back. We're not going for these next two link arguments. They say the material gains are better to this instance, but one, we don't actually, there's an effort This great evidence means that method needs to come first. And you can extend them to the evidence that the logic of preemption is bad in meeting all of the preempts and for contention not to do because in the securitization of rhetoric and what we are going to do before we even speak is perceived by which we were expecting, which they just say that it's idea of threats are key, but there's no explanation of why they have to read this before we even speak. They also run into the bubble evidence which says that they're an example of framework is what's going to be bad here because it is a reason why they're just constricting what we have to do and excluding all alternative knowledge production, which is an example of colonialization, which is the reason why we need to register the law case even if we don't win the criticism or alternative policy production, which means you can go to terrorism.
Just open.
The links from the money here are a reason we try to have they don't get a power. They construct the apocalypse scenario to justify use of Germany 1. Posen says the app whose purpose is to make the West symbol is terrible status global and genetic to be perpetuated without drawing a backlash. They just put a smiling face down from Germany. And second, Posen says the intelligent cooperation we create is not so that local countries can shape our understanding of terrorism business feed us raw materials that we can kill the threats. Posen uses the language of grand strategy, restriction, prejudice, South Pole, counter-terrorism ideology. Posen is the key internal link to their impact. So this turns case at the right that terrorism is reactionary to U.S. policy, the continuation of the status quo policy will perpetuate violence, and our Mueller evidence is damage to their argument, but asking internal links, their evidence assumes 1, large numbers of militants, and second, a desire to attack far-off enemies, and third, foreign recruits. Miller says that assumptions of that would become reality were a reaction to overblown media representation. Initial ISIS webcast Mueller is from 2 months ago and indicates that nothing their authors assume came to happen. The only recent evidence was Chuck Norris, who was behind them, and proves that there's no impact between us.
239.